All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to start talking about problem solving, okay? This is where we actually start taking our knowledge of solving equations and use it to attack some real-world situations, and this will really test if you can translate a story, a situation, into an equation, okay? So these are basically the problem-solving steps. Sometimes you will, want to kind of set up your situation, make a plan, draw a diagram, underline, highlight in the problem. This step 0 is something that you don't always need, but I think it's a great thing when you're not really sure what to do, you're not really sure what's happening in the situation. Don't be afraid to kind of diagram it out or kind of give yourself kind of a helpful setup. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. Okay, there are basically 4 steps, but I like to include this step 0 to encourage you to take the time to kind of diagram out the situation if you need. So that's kind of what I call step 0. Okay, step 1 is to define your variable. Step 2 is to write an equation. Step 3 is to solve your equation, and then step 4 is to check. Okay, so what I would do right now is just pause the video, pop those into your notes, okay? This will make sense as we start doing some more problems, but yeah, go ahead and copy that down now, please. All right, I hope you're back from copying down those 4 steps. What I'm going to basically run you through are a few example problems, okay? I'm going to show you what these 4 steps look like in an actual situation, and you guys have this piece of paper. I'd like you to copy down as I talk what I'm writing down here for my steps. Okay, if you want to just watch and take it in first and then go back and put it on the piece of paper and in your notes, that's one way to do it. But this piece of paper is exactly the same one that you have in front of you, so let's go through it. Remember, we start, like I just said, start by defining the variable, then we write an equation. This step here can be the toughest. Okay, how do we take this situation and map it out as an equation? Once we have the equation, we should have the skills at this point to go through and solve it. Oops-a-daisy, sorry about that. And then step 4, we'll check. All right, so let's start with the first one. I'm going to make this a little bit easier to see by making it a little bit bigger. So here we go. All right, so Jill, she needed to bring her car into the auto repair shop. She had this total bill of $225, and that's going to come from this idea of parts and labor. So why don't I just read it through first? Okay, Jill's auto repair bill was $225. The parts, okay, those are physical items. Something broke on her car, she needed a new tire. Okay, it cost $95. But then you also have to pay for the cost of the people who actually are doing the repair. That's called labor. Okay, so the labor also costs $52 per hour. Okay, per hour, that's a key idea there. And then the question is, for how many hours of labor was Jill charged? Okay, Jill's auto repair bill was $225. The parts cost $95. The labor cost $52 per hour. How many hours of labor was she charged? So if you wanted to do like a step 0, let me give you an example. What I would say is, all right, I have this idea of the parts plus the labor should give me my total bill. Okay, that's what I'm kind of meaning about a step 0. Set up the situation. What are you adding or subtracting? What's kind of the outcome of the final situation? How can you just diagram it out with some words? So step 1 was to define your variable, and that's actually not so hard because you just look at what the question is asking. How many hours of labor was Jill charged? I like to pick a letter that kind of makes sense in the situation, but you can use whatever letter you want, X or N. So H equals the hours of labor. That's what it means to define your variable. Say what letter it is that you're using. You can pick any one you want, X, N, Y, Z, doesn't matter. And then say in words, a little phrase to say, okay, that's what the variable stands for. That's what my H actually means. In this case, it's the hours of labor. How do I know? You just look at the piece of the story problem that's asking you the question. Okay, step 2 is now your equation. So I have this idea of parts plus labor is my total bill. The parts, that's $95. Okay, so 95 plus this idea of labor. Well, the total labor cost comes from the amount per hour times by the number of hours. Okay, the per hour cost, so 52 times the number of hours. Well, my number of hours is actually what I've defined my variable to be, so that's where my variable is going to come in here. I have 95 plus 52h gives me my total of, what was my total? $225. Okay, and like I said, this is maybe the toughest part. And we practiced this here. Maybe some of you knew how to kind of attack that problem right away. Well, you need to subtract and then you need to divide. But I want you to practice writing the equation. Okay, practice this idea of translating a story into an equation for the situations where you don't look at the problem and know what to do. So now, step 3 is to simply solve. I'm going to subtract 95 from both sides. Then these are going to cancel. I have 52h equals 130. And then next, oops, I wrote 5. Sorry about that. 52h, and now I divide. Divide by 52, divide by 52. It's okay at this point if you grab a calculator. These numbers are fairly large. You can estimate it. It should be somewhere kind of between 2 and 3, and it is exactly 2.5. Okay, h equals 2.5, and I would love for you to put a label on that. Hours of labor. Okay, step 4. I'm sorry, getting a bit messy up here. All right, step 4 is up here. Let me see if I can fix things here. There we go. Okay, so step 4 is now to check. Okay, if we haven't went over that in class, I'll show you right now. So you go back to your original equation. 95 plus 52h equals 225. Again, I'm going to kind of clean things up here a bit, just to make it look a little bit neater. And now I have figured out that h is 2.5. So I write 95 plus 52 times 2.5 equals 225. And again, you can grab a calculator for when the numbers get this big. 52 times 2.5 is 130. Okay, this hopefully you can do on your own. 95 plus 130 is 225. So if you get the situation where the two sides are equal to each other, you know you have the right answer. Okay, that's number 1. All right, let me try one more with you. Okay, feel free to go back and listen to anything that you want to go back and review if you weren't exactly sure of how that works. But I'm going to move on to one more example problem. Okay, the members of a book club spend the same amount for refreshments at each meeting. Okay, they spend the same amount. Okay, that's kind of key. At one meeting, they bought 6 sandwiches and spent $9.90 on beverages. And then at the next meeting, they bought 8 sandwiches and spent $8.20 in beverages. So they have the same kind of budget. They're spending the same amount for the stuff that they're buying for their refreshments, their drinks, and their snacks. And we want to know what was the cost of each sandwich. Okay, so again, if you're going to set up your step 0, I'm going to say, all right, the same amount. Well, that means maybe I'll call this meeting 1, and I'll call the second one meeting 2. But basically that means the cost of meeting 1 equals the cost of meeting 2. Okay, what was the cost of each sandwich? So that's what they're asking me. So that's what's going to help me here with my defining my variable. So let's say C is cost of each sandwich. Okay, so again, I go back to this idea of meeting 1 is the same as meeting 2. Oh, how am I coming up with my total cost? We have sandwiches and we have drinks. Okay, I know exactly how much I'm spending on drinks, but the sandwiches have this idea of I bought 6 of them, but I don't know how much each one is. So basically, meeting 1, okay, maybe I'll kind of bring this down. Meeting 1 equals meeting 2. And meeting 1, oh man, it's starting to look messy up here. Let's clean things up a little bit. Okay, meeting 1 is 6 sandwiches and $9.90. So 6C, because I bought 6 sandwiches and they each cost C dollars. Okay, so the total amount I spend on my sandwiches is going to be 6 multiplied by how much each one sandwich costs. Okay, so 6C plus, I know exactly the drinks, that's $9.90, equals 8C, because now I have 8 sandwiches, but only $8.20 for my beverages. Okay, so that's your equation, and like I've said before, that is the toughest part. Okay, from there, now we just have to solve. I'm going to subtract 6C first, move my variable terms to one side. So those cancel. I get 2C plus 820. On this side, I have 990. And now I need to move the numerical terms to the other side of my equation. Okay, so the 820 cancels with the negative 820. I bring down 2C. When I subtract, I should get $1.70 here. When I divide by 2, that's my last and final step. Let me see if I have a little more space. I'm going to get C is equal to, don't be afraid to write that out, that's okay. 2 into 17 is 8, with a remainder of 1, bring down the 0. So 2 into 10 is 5. So each sandwich costs 85 cents. Those are some cheap sandwiches. All right, you can go back and check your work by, in step 4, plugging in 0.85 into your original equation. Okay, so, and it's okay to use a calculator for that. 6 times 0.85 plus 9.9, I don't really need that 0 there, equals 8, equals 8 sandwiches times also 85 cents plus 8.2 for the beverages. All right, again, I'm going to just pop this in my calculator, 5.1, if you multiply that out, equals, and this is 6.8, if you multiply those, if you add up both sides, on both sides, you're going to get exactly 15. It doesn't really matter what number you get here. What matters is that they are the same. Okay, if you get the same thing, you know that you've solved that equation correctly. Okay, so 2 quick example problems. From this point, maybe you can start working through some problem solving on your own. I will kind of zoom this out if you want to see the whole thing. And yeah, like I said, feel free to go back and watch and take things in again if you'd like. But happy story problem solving.